Okay, Brian, you've mentioned that you've got an ear to the BBC. First of all, how on earth did you manage that? And can you give us a bit of a background to your approach to the media, please?
Okay, yeah, I think again this is one of the things that we've done quite differently, because everybody that we met with, people on social media, were just complaining about the Racing Post, complaining about Racing UK, ATR, Channel 4 Racing, which became ITV Racing, saying, why don't they ever cover people not being able to get a bet? Why don't they ever cover unfair terms and conditions? But it's primarily around not getting a bet. And we took the opposite attitude to that, because we fully recognised that we could continue to bang our head against a brick wall, knowing really that the specialist racing media were not going to cover these issues in great depth. Yes, the Racing Post have covered it, but compared to all the pro things that they cover bookmakers with, it's been very, 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 very minimal. So we thought, okay, let's go to the media that don't have a financial interest in the gambling industry. So we tried various things, and we've done quite a bit with the Guardian. We've done quite a bit with the Times, but the big breakthrough was the BBC. Okay, how did we do it? Again, it's going to be really boring, this, because it's all to do with a bit of luck and hard work, really. I'd tried various places, Panorama, different things, and then I came across, well, I knew about you and yours on Radio 4, and I thought, why don't they ever cover gambling? All right, so I got in touch with them and said what we were doing. And you need to bear in mind that it's very unlikely that a media organisation like that their first priority would be a minimum bet law. So you've got to be cute, really. So we went in with our first story about not paying out, and it was a casino, and this guy was owed £30,000, which was a life-changing amount for him, and they wouldn't cover the story, understandably, without meeting one of us, or two of us anyway. As it turned out, there's only me that could go, and it's not far to Salford for me. And I met one of their producers, and the important part of the story is that I actually said to her, I says, look, these are the issues that you could cover, and you're not going to believe in this meeting that we're having now that everything I'm saying is true. And after 6 months and 2 stories, she actually said to me, Brian, everything you said to us 6 months ago has come true, hasn't it? And I says, I told you that. I told you about them not paying out. I told you about not taking bets. I told you about problem gambling. And it really was a game changer that you had a major media organisation that were willing to run regular stories about what was happening in the gambling industry. And that first story was amazing in that they went to the casino house, told them that they were going to run the story. They were going to run the story, I can't remember whether it was a Thursday or a Friday. They do everything right under the media code, give right to reply. And the company came back to them and said, we'll pay this guy tomorrow if you don't run the story. Fatal mistake. Okay, it's the BBC, guys. You might think you're big as some sort of corporate casino house. Their reaction was, thanks very much, you pay him, but we're still running the story. And amazingly, by the time the story ran, he'd been paid, so that was the positive side of the story, but the damage was done. And then it got even worse later on when we ran a story to do with problem gambling, so a person who'd lost a significant amount of money, and he ended up in residential psychiatric care. And while he was in residential psychiatric care, the gambling company concerned were still sending him texts of free bets, well, mainly free spins. And his consultant psychiatrist wrote to the company and said, will you please stop pestering my patient? And they continued to do it. So the BBC decided to run the story, and they were threatened with being sued by the company. That was the worst thing ever. But it shows a little bit again around the arrogance that some of these companies have, and perhaps why they've never engaged with us and things, that they think they can just bully people. And if that's your choice, that's your choice. But of course, the BBC were not caving into that. And the story was run, and basically the guy ended up getting compensation, etc., etc., etc. So this completely different approach of, okay, we were not getting the minimum bet law that lots of people want. I mean, there's a few people that don't want that, but the vast majority who shout a lot do. But we were getting the coverage. We were beginning to expose around fairness. How is it fair if you gamble with a casino for 2 years and then you happen to have a big win and they refuse to pay you? How is that fair? And don't forget, a lot of these casinos are owned by what, you know, most people that watch this programme would associate as being bookmakers, sports bookmakers, racing bookmakers. So it was all this approach of broadening out, looking for stories that we knew the media would cover. And since we got the trust of the BBC, obviously then others came on board. So we've now had stuff in Irish Field. In fact, there's been quite a few stuff in there. Daily Mail. But primarily we've targeted places like the Times. We've even had a front page Times, front page in the printed paper story. So that has been so important. I said earlier about the customer evidence, but the breakthrough with the BBC and other major media, those were the two big things. And just concentrating on the truth, right? Concentrate on the truth. Concentrate on fairness, and you will get some coverage.
Okay, what are the biggest misdemeanours and bad practice that you consider, at least, that bookmakers use that you'd like to see abolished forthwith?
That's a really difficult question. So, if we think about going from opening an account online to ceasing to do business with a company. Okay, and this is going to take quite a while now, but if you think about it, you watch, I don't know, you maybe not a gambler or haven't been a gambler, and you watch Manchester United versus Chelsea on Sky TV, and you're bombarded with adverts, and those adverts are telling you that sports betting is aspirational. You could be a professor. You could bet with your gut, you could whatever. And don't forget, just at present, if you bet savvy, you're very, very welcome at one of the major companies. And so you're bombarded with this advertising. So you go along and you open your account. Don't tell me that anybody has a concept at this point that if you're one of the tiny number of people who wins using logic, that you will not have that account for very, very long. So that is your starting point, okay? Like I say, fairness, tell the truth. The truth is that if you are a recreational punter without aspiration, you're absolutely fine. If you play the game and you have bets that are just coming from your guts, or bets on your own football team, or bets on an horse because the bloke in the pub told you that he knew a trainer from 45 years ago and they've set one up for today, you won't have a problem. And the services in that situation is absolutely fantastic. You'll get your free bet on a Saturday or whatever, or if you lose so much in a week, you'll get 25% back. And you fulfill this sort of image from those adverts. But let's be clear, if you show abilities that you may win, you will be restricted. There is no question about that. So that is your starting point. What should we do about that? If we're about fairness, we often quote law and things like that. We're not lawyers, but we now have access to people who can advise us on that. And basically what we're talking about here is breaking the law. Okay? If you're going to advertise something that is aspirational, you have to provide a service that allows that aspiration. So if you're going to stop anybody from winning using skill, that should be quite clear on the advert. It should be quite clear when you sign up, i.e. when you sign up, you should have to tick a box which says this is purely for recreational purposes, and if you use any techniques, any methods, any systems that may suggest to us that you are not going to be economic for us, you will not be able to trade with us. So that's your starting point. Okay, then we move on to terms and conditions. Who reads terms and conditions? All right, boringly, I have started to do. And I had a look at some recently. I won't say which company, but all I will say is that they've already been censured by the Competition and Markets Authority. 32,500 words are their terms and conditions. Who is going to read 32,500 words? So you need a summary of no more than 500 words of what the important terms and conditions are, because it's a major issue. You know, especially if you gamble in casinos. Yes, there have been recent changes, which I'm delighted to say that we had a big hand in. But I mean, really, for years, casinos have been making offers where it was impossible to win. 99% of the time, you couldn't win, and the 1% of the time that you did, it was likely that you'd infringed a term and condition. So maybe you'd managed to get through the times 50 turnover, so you'd signed up, got your 100 quid extra, turned over 15,000 or whatever, and you were left with, I'm making this up now, but we've had loads of cases like this. You were left with 1,400 quid in your account, and then you get this email saying you can't withdraw because you actually had £6 on roulette on January 27th, and that's an infringement. It said in the terms and conditions on page 53 that actually you can't have more than £5 on roulette, so you now can't have your money. So this person had been gambling for days and days and days, turning over N,000, and the company already knew that they couldn't lose, because if the person lost all the money, they'd keep it, and if they didn't, they would have this term and condition that actually stopped them having to pay out. And that is the stage that we were at when we started. Don't tell me that's fair. Don't tell me that's open. It is unfair, and it is verging on corrupt.